We first see a written quote from Steve Maraboli. This immediately appeals to the older and sophisticated audience, as reading can stimulate them, and it offers them a chance to think intellectually. The black background and white text connotes that things are actually more straightforward than people think, as it's in black and white. This leads into the topic that it's all about what you desire and how people can lose track of this because they get clouded by things and lose track of things. The voice of God figure is heard directly addressing the audience, and it's the first thing he does. This gets the attention of the younger audience as it gets them thinking what they desire themselves. It also makes things more personal to the person watching as it gets them to reflect on their own lives. This gains the attention of the older thinker VAL types, who have experienced more of life. It also asks the viewer to look left and right of themselves. This engages the audience and gets them involved with the documentary, meaning they're more likely to keep watching. There is a cut from a black screen to a close-up of dollar bills falling in slow motion. This connotes how people's views are focused more on the money. This is shown as the dark background represents a void in people's minds as they can think of nothing else. However, the slow motion makes you see what money really is, an object. This therefore connotes that money cannot lead to happiness, and instead implies that the following your dreams can. There is a close-up of a woman doctor's face, with what looks like a whiteboard in the background. This connotes that she is a teacher as she's sitting in the place that seems to be overlooking a class. She has her hair down, drooping over her face. This could connote the constant strain she feels in her job, as she isn't following her passion. The fact she has a blank expression on her face also presents the fact that she isn't happy, and that she doesn't find happiness in what she does. This suggests to the younger audience an outcome that can happen if you don't follow your dreams, possibly making them reassess their own lives. The narrator mentions, as everybody knows, you can't earn money that way. We then see a medium shot of a man using a laptop. The extreme low-key lighting around him connotes that he is working late or very early in the morning. This represents the amount of work you need to put into your passion to be capable of making it into a sustainable career choice. During some of his diegetic dialogue, there's an anecdote of his own experiences and how his father passing was a huge blow to his life, but led him to find a new dream. This appeals to the audience as it makes the voice of God figure seem more human and relatable, meaning a relationship can be formed between this person and the audience. This could make the audience more intrigued and keep them watching. The narrator says the world is a scary place. At the same time, a medium shot of a dark room with a window on the right of the shot is seen. The low-key lighting of the room connotes the darkness and fear that people encounter to make the world a scary place. It could also connote the narrator's inner fears, as he is the one that's suggesting that the world is scary. Outside the window, you can see a storm brewing. This suggests an example of how the world can be scary. The fact the window is seen off-centre in the right-hand side of the shot connotes that these fears can be overcome, as the window doesn't take up the whole shot and isn't a dominating factor. It is instead the darkness that takes up most of the room. This could connote that most of the time, all the fear is just in our heads. Later, there is a long shot of a child walking alone on a path in a park. The child is placed towards the left side of the frame and not in the middle. Often, in our choices in life, can be unsupported by those around us, particularly when you are choosing what you desire instead of a solid career, as they want what's best for you. This child, being placed to the left of the frame, connotes that he is being unsupported in his dreams for the future. This emphasises that the documentary is trying to encourage you to follow your dream no matter what, even though you may not be supported the whole time. The narrator talks about his own experiences in life and starts an anecdote saying how he tried to cope with his dad dying. He mentions how everything just seemed to stop. Meanwhile, we see a long shot of people socialising. This shot is sped up and comes to a sudden halt when the narrator says stop. The long shot connotes how distant he became from society and how isolated he might have felt from everyone else, because no one else knew what he was going through. whilst the fast editing of the shot connotes the fast-paced world that we live in and how it constantly moves and evolves. When the footage is stopped in time with the voiceover, it connotes the impact of his father's death and how he didn't know what to do anymore. He mentions acting was the only friend he had. At this point, a handheld medium shot of a boy walking on stage clutching a microphone is seen. The handheld shot connotes how unstable he is and how nervous he was without his father around. The fact he is clutching the microphone relates back to the dialogue, as it's like his only friend. The non-diegetic score in the background appeals to the older audience as it's sophisticated and classical. Because it's in a major key, it adds an inspiring mood to the documentary. The bottom melody keeps moving. This creates a feel that the viewers are being pushed closer to what they're supposed to be doing, their desire. There is a close-up of a guitar poster. In this shot, everything else is slightly blurry apart from the words, "make a difference." This is emphasising the documentary message/point. They want you to make a difference in your life and change it so you're happier. There is a close-up of someone working. This is a handheld shot. The shakiness of the shot connotes the pressure and strain put onto students to do well in exams, whilst the close-up could connote the concentration of pressure and work put onto them by others, particularly their parents. This provides personal identity to younger audiences as they themselves may have been through such pressures when doing exams. There is a track sideward along a classroom as students are working. The track doesn't focus on one child alone, but skims past all of them. This connotes how society and the education system doesn't focus on a child's dreams or ambitions. They don't spend time on one child and see them all as the same, therefore pushing them into standard jobs. There is a close-up of Newton meters in a box, whilst the narrator questions, "Does that make you a smarter person?" This and the fact the camera is focused on one particular Newton meter, with its measuring scale clearly seen, connotes how schools measure intelligence and focus on good grades rather than what you're actually passionate about. Therefore, this encourages audiences not to worry whether they're smart enough, but instead to focus on the bigger question, what is their desire? There is a close-up of two people writing, with their work not in focus. This connotes how it isn't all about intelligence and that good grades shouldn't necessarily matter. It also suggests that there is more to life than just being successful, leading back to their message that your desires and passions should steer your life rather than things like money. There is a close-up of a woman working. We pedestal upwards to see a large pile of work stacked next to her. This shot is shaky and handheld. The pedestal shows how much work she has to do and connotes how it's taking over her life and becoming more of a priority than what she really wants to do. The shakiness of the shot connotes the strain she feels from doing all this work and how she is restless and isn't at peace because she can't follow her dreams. The low-key lighting could connote how suppressed and astray she feels by, again, not doing what she desires. There is a glimmer of light from above. This connotes that there is still hope left for her to get out of this situation and start living her life. All of this mostly displays a negative representation on what it's like to not follow your dreams, therefore making the audience see how not to live their lives, and therefore encouraging them to follow their desires, whatever the case may be. The short takes of the skydivers connote the fun and joy you can feel when you do what you love best. It also implies that time flies when you're having fun, because the takes are short, and the activity that they're doing is presented to be very enthralling. There is a close-up of an alarm clock. With this, the narrator comments on how if you're doing what you love, it doesn't matter what time it is in the morning. The alarm clock shows it's 5:20 a.m., a very early start to the day. However, the lighting is very yellow and orange. This connotes that even though it's early, this person is happy and ready to get up and do what they enjoy. The narrator says, "You could eventually become a master of it." With this, we see a long shot of a girl in a changing room doing up her laces. This shot connotes that she is getting ready for a sports match. As she is on her own, it suggests that she's putting in practice that others aren't prepared to do. This connotes that being a master of something takes more dedication than most people are prepared to put in. There is a race theme in this video, a message of inclusion. A black female may ordinarily be considered disadvantaged in a white male-dominated society. The filmmaker is saying race and gender is not a barrier to what he's saying. It could also connote how people often use excuses not to follow their dreams. Here the narrator is saying that excuses aren't good enough. There is a long take of tracking through a city. This could connote the long slog people feel when they are doing something they don't like, and how they blend into their surroundings. The fact the shot is blurry connotes how things aren't clear when you're not fulfilling your passions. You therefore can't enjoy the surroundings and the journey you're on. There is a medium close-up of two boys playing ping pong in very low-key lighting. This could connote how they are looked down upon. They clearly enjoy ping pong, but for a career it doesn't offer a good salary. Therefore, parents, for instance, may discourage them from doing it. The lighting connotes their disapproval and society's expectation to earn money rather than take risks. The extreme long shot of the city during dawn connotes the start of something new and the hope of inspiring new generations to start following their passions instead of teaching them to live safely and be unhappy. The tracking around the boy to face an empty auditorium connotes the change in perspective and the new direction people need to take, that they need to ask themselves the question of what they desire instead of living unhappily, doing something you don't love. The track also connotes how the little boy is doing what he loves for himself and isn't bothered what other people think. As we see an empty auditorium, he is therefore performing to himself and not for anyone else.